between them?
No one.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Gators Online Show. I am Keith Niebuhr. That is Zach Albaverde. As usual, we've got a lot to cover. As we always say here, it is never dull in Hogtown. And for those of you that don't know, that aren't old like me, Hogtown is Gainesville. And just another busy week, another week filled with news, another week filled with hot seat chatter about Gators football coach Billy Napier. So, again, a lot to discuss. We're also going to bring in Robbie Falk, who covers Mississippi State, to talk about the Florida-Mississippi State game this weekend. Yes, there is a game, and I know everybody wants to get to that, but obviously we're going to start with all the chatter about Billy Napier right now. But before we do, as always, we've got to read one quick ad, and then we'll jump right into it. So, Zach, take it away.
Absolutely. We're going to start the show, as we do each and every week, with a shout-out to Game Time. College football season is we're at the halfway mark at this point, and you guys have got to see some great games. I know that I've been able to be at some incredible stadiums and atmospheres, and there's still more to come in 2025, but sometimes getting your hands on tickets can be tough. I've had folks hit me up during the season trying to get tickets to these different games that have been happening. Obviously, the one Florida, Texas was in the Swamp. And the best way that I've been able to get my hands on some tickets and also help out my family and friends is telling them to go to the Game Time app. The Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in a few taps. It's incredibly easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee means you can trust that you'll get 100% authentic tickets and at the best price. Plus, fees are always included, and what you see is what you pay. There's no surprise fees at checkout, and you can get college football tickets for as low as $25. My wife and her friend were able to get some tickets to the Florida-Texas game when they decided day of that they wanted to go. Imagine that, Keith. But you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the redeem code ON3, that's ON and the number 3, for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download the Game Time app today.
All right, so Zach, look, there's a lot of chatter these days about Billy Napier's status as Gators coach. How much longer is he going to last? Is he going to last at all? And Wednesday, there was a big story in USA Today by a guy that you and I know well, Matt Hayes. Went to University of Florida, covered Florida for many years for the Jacksonville newspaper. And in his report, per Matt Hayes, Florida Athletic Director Scott Strickland met with a handful of influential boosters Tuesday and was told continuing financial support depends on a new direction within the football program. Well, that story sat out there for most of the day, Zach, and then you and some other reporters, through due diligence, talked to sources and close to the situation, and sort of they refuted, not sort of, they refuted elements of that story. So from what you can tell us, what are they saying truly happened in this meeting that supposedly took Tuesday, and how many people were and weren't there, I guess is the best way to ask.
Well, I think it's also important to note in that original report that came out that Scott Strickland did not comment for that story. So we didn't really have the UAA side of things. On Wednesday night, we got the UAA side of things. I talked to a source in the UAA. I know Dave Waters from Gators Breakdown also spoke to what he described as a high-level source. I'm assuming that it was in the UAA as well, because they were basically categorically denying the aspect of the report that Scott Strickland had met with a handful of boosters, and also that those group of boosters demanded to him that there had to be a change, or otherwise they were pulling their funds. Basically, that there was an ultimatum given based on the source that I spoke to in the UAA. They did concede that Strickland had a meeting on Tuesday, but that it was only with one booster, and that booster came in to talk about the football program. They obviously talked about the state of the head coaching situation, but there was never a point in that meeting where the booster basically demanded or threatened Scott that he would pull funds if he didn't make a change at the head coaching position. I was told adamantly that did not that did not occur. That wasn't part of the conversation that was had. So that's the UAA's side and kind of stance on what took place. I still think that it's significant that they are conceding that Scott Strickland met with a prominent booster on Tuesday and discussed, the state of the football program. I think that kind of speaks to where things stand right now.
Do we know, Zach, and if you could keep this answer long, because I've got to run and get a charger really quick here. Talk as long as you want. Do we know what, okay, we know what UAA is saying didn't happen, but or high-level sources are saying the UAA side, what didn't happen, but do we know what did happen? Could that have been a meeting, just to speculate here? Hey, look, this is where things are headed, and we need the funds. I mean, what do you think? What do you think did maybe go down during that meeting? I know you weren't there. I don't know if you talked to anybody in it, but what do you think happened?
Well, I haven't spoke to any people on the booster side of things that were in there, but according to the UAA source that I spoke with, the football program was discussed, but more specifically, it was that said booster saying, "Hey, I'm able to provide whatever you need. Basically, I'm here to help. I'll do whatever I can." And obviously, I think it's not a stretch to say that the booster went in there to express that he wanted a change, or that he desired a change. I think that's obvious. If you've been following our reporting at Gators Online this week, it's obvious to the UAA that might be something that's about to happen in the near future based on the due diligence that they've been doing. And that involves sitting down with a prominent booster and seeing where he stands, what he wants, and how he can help. And it seems like that was the nature of the meeting, but the fact that meeting happened and the UAA, at least my source in the UAA, has confirmed that that's what Strickland did. I think that's pretty significant because it shows, as I'll talk about here in a second, where things stand and where this thing is headed.
Yeah, that was my next question. Where do things stand and where is this headed? That's what we call a transition, Zach. No, but I mean, it's been that was an interesting day, right? I mean, one report comes out, a well-respected reporter, and then people refute it later in the day, refute some significant elements to that. And so where are we now? Because, Billy Napier's 21-23 as Florida coach. He's 11-16 in the SEC. Florida has the 4 losses this season. 3 of them are to top 5 teams. I mean, there's, but just taking the pulse of the Gator Nation community out there, it's pretty obvious what everybody wants, right? I mean, it's they're ready to turn the page. I haven't met or talked or seen one thing from a what you would consider a diehard Gator that says, all right, let's keep this thing going. So, Billy Napier is up against it, as we say. So, Zach, where do things stand right now as you know it?
Yeah, I do want to add real quick before I jump into that I made sure to confirm with a source that I had outside of the UAA that there was a meeting scheduled and a meeting that took place on Tuesday with a booster.
Okay.
If you read the Gators Online message board and you read the several pages of threads that we had on my forum, or should I say my thread about this, you might have an idea of who that booster was. So anyways, that's what I'll say on that. As far as what I'll say on this, look, I've kind of been saying, I think those that know me and have been following this show know that I've been kind of thinking that 5 losses would be kind of the when it would happen, when the needle would drop. And as we talked about on the last show, Keith, you kind of floated the idea of making a change after the Mississippi State game, win or loss. And my only thought with that was if they do that, or if they're considering that, or if that's something that's on the table, that would only be the case if they're going to make a change and put in an interim. I wasn't really sure that was going to happen because I kind of felt like it was more likely that Napier would finish out the season. But if you saw my report on Thursday at Gators Online, that's not the expectation anymore. If and when a decision is made, and at this point, I don't even think it's an if. I don't expect Napier to finish out the season. I think that an interim will be put in place based on the sources that I've talked to. That seems like that's the expectation from folks in the building. So that's kind of where things stand now. I'm not sure if that's going to happen on Sunday. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, after the Georgia game. I'll say this though, I think that Saturday is likely his last game in the Swamp. Regardless of what the timeline looks like, I don't think that he'll be coaching Florida by the time they get back to Gainesville, which will be the Tennessee game. So this really could, I think this is his last game on Saturday in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium for sure.
So we had a story yesterday, kind of the pros and cons of firing somebody mid-season, and we went under the assumption, we being me, that under the assumption that if you did this, you went with an interim coach. So there are a lot of pros to doing this these days, but there are also some cons, and the cons really revolve around a couple of things. Zach, recruiting. I mean, your recruiting is basically pretty much you're going to be on a desert, or out in the desert for the next couple of months. However, in this era, the transfer portal window allows you to sort of fill in some of the gaps from that element. You also maybe worry about player motivation. There's no longer a guy at the top of the food chain to lead the structure of the program, lead the program on a daily basis. That could lead to less accountability, could lead to disciplinary issues, things like that. Seasons can certainly spiral out of control. You might have assistant coaches looking for jobs, other people in the building who have vital roles looking for jobs, and maybe their focus isn't the tunnel vision that you need at your current job to be successful. So there are a lot of cons, but there are also a lot of pros. And, I talked to multiple coaches this week, one of them currently coaching in the SEC, one of them a former SEC coach, and one of them a former SEC coordinator and college head coach who's now out of the business. And they gave us some real insight. It's not earth-shattering stuff, but some of the pros, Zach, just include, first of all, the new transfer portal window really is beneficial. Like if Florida, in the past, if Florida fired a coach mid-season, guys had 30 days to enter the portal right then. Now they have to wait, and they have to wait 5 days until after a new coach is hired. The new transfer portal window doesn't start until January 2nd and runs through January 16th. So theoretically, it's not nearly as problematic as it would have been even just 12 months ago, Zach. It's a chance for assistant coaches to make their mark. Let's just use Florida, for example. If Florida makes a change, Billy Napier is no longer in charge of the offense. Russ Callaway is. The offense averages 22 points a game, Zach. If the offense averages 32 points a game the rest of the way, that allows a coach like him to make his mark. More time and energy for an athletic director to put into the actual search. As you have already reported this week, the vetting began a while ago. I mean, the due diligence started a while ago. But
it started last year.
But yeah, exactly. But if you don't have to deal with the day-to-day stuff of do I fire this guy? Do I not fire this guy? Once that's in the rearview mirror, you can then have tunnel vision as an athletic director and as an athletic program and be.
You don't have to beat around the bush either.
That's right.
I mean, you got to be secretive, but like obviously everyone knows you're looking for a coach at that point.
That's right. So there are different aspects. And players, we mentioned earlier, well, players, some old guys, veterans may check out, hey, I'm going to transfer, I'm gone anyway. Young guys, without the structure, without the leadership at the top, could lose. This was one of the cons, could lose key developmental time. The positive, though, Zach, these guys are paid employees now. If you mail it in the last 5 games, let's say, a new staff may not want you. A staff at another school may not want you, and your value diminishes. It actually benefits these guys more than ever to play their fannies off, quite frankly. So there are some pros, less pressure for the players, maybe, a little of the monkey off the back, all those things. But it isn't, these aren't always easy, cut and dry decisions. At the end of the day, an athletic director has to go with his gut, Zach. But I think the fan base is telling Scott Strickland's gut what to say. But again, there are lots of pros, lots of cons. Where do you fall on this? Would you, and we're not talking strictly about Billy Napier at this moment, but if you were an athletic director, would you have any reservations about getting rid of somebody in the middle of the season based on all the, the elements, the variables at play?
Yeah, unfortunately, Keith, I think what's changed is the social media aspect and just how much there's more noise out there than ever. There was always noise before, like even in the early 2000s, obviously, and over the past 2 decades that Florida's been going through this, unfortunately. You always had noise out there, whether it was sports talk shows, obviously in the newspapers back in the day. It's a different animal now. Like you've got podcasts, you've got obviously Twitter, you've got Instagram, you've got TikTok. I mean, you've got Facebook. It's all over the place where fans and certainly people that are really involved can express their distaste and frustration, and a lot of times rightfully so. But it's from a perception standpoint, from social media and how you want to brand the program and how you want to promote the program, and being able to like highlight the player achievements that they do and the records that they set and things like that. It's hard to do that when every single post is fire Billy Napier. I mean, it just is.
And those are just my posts.
Yeah.
But,
I mean,
no, I'm kidding, but
like they had to wait till what, Wednesday or Tuesday to post that Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown were the first true freshman wide receivers to start in a game in school history, because I think the social media team knew that whenever they posted that, it was just, more than 50% of it was going to be calling for his job. So when you're in that position, and that's part of the public perception, that fits into recruiting, how prospects and their parents and their high school coaches and agents see what people are saying about the program, see how fans are interacting with social media posts. All of that stuff matters now, and that's not stuff that they had to take into account even 15 years ago. So it's a different world now, and because of that, I think that there are more pros probably than ever to making a change during the season, and even putting an interim in place. Like I think obviously there's still places that happen, and it has happened twice with Florida in the past, with Zook and with Muschamp. And I thought that there was a chance that would happen with Napier, but it doesn't seem like that's the case anymore. And it is. I think that Florida sees more pros than cons.
Sorry, Zach. That transfer portal situation, the change that's just recently happened,
that was huge. That changes really, the game.
That makes life a lot easier for ADs. A transition class being when you relieve one coach, either quits or you fire him into the new staff coming in. Those transition recruiting classes are often horrible. If you look back to Billy Napier's first class, they hit on a few guys, but overall, you're never going to do that well. So this transfer portal in general allows you to kind of fill in the gaps. But now with the fact that you can kind of maybe have a better chance of keeping guys already on the team. I think that's the big thing. Guys aren't just now, they can announce they're going to leave and they can decide I'm leaving, but they can't officially enter a transfer portal until a certain time. And we all know that young guys are conflicted. They're going to be pulled in different directions. You get a kid in front of a new coach and a new coaching staff, or in front of an AD who says, listen, the coach isn't hired yet, but trust me, you're going to like this guy. It's going to make you listen. And you have the NIL elements. Hey, look, I know you're getting looked at by these other schools. Here's the package that we can put together for you. Now, that's a little dicey too, because a new coaching staff is going to have different numbers.
Yeah, that's true.
For different guys. Now, again, that leads to another discussion. Should a general manager, should somebody in charge of what's essentially the cap for college sports be separate from the coaching staff? Okay. But even if they are, they still have to communicate with them, right? You can't just give them a staff that they don't, or a group of players, a roster they don't want to work with. So there's a lot of elements at play here. Zach, the number one pro to me is sort of something that you can't really quantify. It's, they say, Zach, if you're a smoker, if you're a cigarette smoker, I use this analogy all the time. If you're smoking cigarettes for 20 years, the day you quit, they say your lungs start to heal immediately. All right. So right now you have a fractured Florida fan base, a wounded Florida fan base, a disgusted Florida fan base.
Pissed off.
And I just experienced this a couple years ago at another school, and they wanted this guy out. And the minute that guy was out and an interim coach was put in place, the fan base sort of came together, right? Sort of like in times of national tragedy, we all sing together, and at least for a couple of days, and then we go back to hating each other. But your lungs start to appeal. What's the word I'm looking for? To heal. I can't even get the words right, Zach. The minute you make this move, when it comes, and again, this is no slight on Billy Napier. It's just a fact of, this is just what the situation is. The fan base will immediately start to come together, and they can get aligned and start moving in one direction, unified. Now, obviously, things start splintering within about the first or second spring practice when the tight end's not getting thrown to enough or whatever. But for a while, everybody's on the same page, and you can make whoever the new coach would be, and we think it's headed down that path, you can make that guy sound like Vince Lombardi, at least for the first season, right? So everybody. So I think the fan base is just waiting for that moment. Everybody knows it's coming, but they're just ready to just kind of, for it to happen, take that deep breath and start pulling together again.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that that's where the season has evolved to, because there was so much promise going into this year, and Florida was supposed to be in a much better spot heading into homecoming than where they are right now. And it'll be interesting to see how this game plays out on Saturday, Keith. Obviously they announced that it was going to be a sellout. Florida's going to be wearing its throwback uniforms. They're not going to be playing a top 5 team. And they're at home against a Mississippi State team that is coming off of a bye week, but they don't have their best running back.
Yeah.
So Florida should win this game, and it's going to be interesting to see how they play and what the swamp is like.
Mississippi State's sort of been involved in some unique games in the past. It was Ron Zook's final season when he lost at Mississippi State that really cost him to lose his job ultimately, because that Mississippi State team, Zach, that beat the Florida Gators had just a few weeks earlier lost to Maine. Okay. That didn't sit well with the Florida fan base. And I'll give you another one. Just a couple of years ago, Mississippi State played Texas A&M and got destroyed. And what happened the next day? Even though Texas A&M won, Texas A&M fired Jimbo Fisher as head coach, despite winning by, I think, 41 points.
That's right.
So who knows what's going to happen Sunday? Only Scott Strickland knows, and he might not know until he knows. You know what I mean?
There's some history with Florida and Mississippi State too.
Oh yeah.
What's that?
Well,
you know it. You wrote about it.
You got the Shane. You talking about the Shane Matthews 5 interception game?
No,
or am I missing something?
No, another Florida coach another coach from Florida whose career ended against Mississippi State. I guess he got to continue coaching though, so I shouldn't say that. But he got fired after losing to Mississippi State.
Well, who are we talking about?
I'm asking you. I'm putting you on.
I mentioned Ron Zook. Is there another one?
Okay. Yeah. That's
okay.
Yeah,
wait a second here. Is there how many guys have lost to Mississippi State? Oh God, I shouldn't say that. Robbie Falk of Maroon and White Daily, who covers the Bulldogs, is going to be joining us soon. Look, Florida has lost some games to Mississippi State before. There have been elements of years where Mississippi State was very good in the early '80s. They had a great quarterback. Yeah. Tim Tebow, a guy named John Bond, they were very good and beat some good Florida teams. Then you had the 5 interception Shane Matthews game in 1992 at Davis Wade Stadium. I was there for that. And I'll tell you,
Berger had some tough games against Mississippi.
Yeah, he did. I think he lost 2 or 3 times to Mississippi State. Generally beat them pretty good. We were driving to Starkville once, and Zach, you've been there before. There's really not much out there. And as we wait for Robbie Falk, I was riding with Gary Shelton and John Romano of the St. Petersburg Times back in 1992. And John Romano says, hey, I think none of us had been there before. John says, I've been told you can see the stadium from the highway. So we all turn our heads. Oh, there it is. And we turn our heads back, and the car in front of us had stopped. John had to screech the tires. All right, screech it. We're screeching on the highway. Gary Shelton turns to us and says, hey, John, can you pull into the next Walmart? I need to get some new shorts. So there you go.
Well, and you covered Keith. You covered another tough loss that Florida had against Mississippi State.
Was that Dan Mullins' win over Urban Meyer?
Dan Mullins win against Urban Meyer, 10-7 game.
Yeah. Just Florida missed a field goal in that game, did they not?
Oh, God, I don't remember. That was my first year on the beat.
Yeah. So they've had Mississippi State, not good last year, 2-10. This year, 4-2, but 0-2 in the SEC. However, they started off strong. Schedule wasn't extremely tough overall in its totality, but that one game against Arizona State early on, Arizona State, a playoff team last year, and nobody thought Mississippi State was going to win. Arizona State's coach, who I know pretty well, Kenny Dillingham, even kind of took some shots at Starkville, and they went in there and they got beat. So let's bring in Robbie Falk now of Maroon and White Daily. Robbie, let's get your little header up here. Oh, there we go. Robbie, you've covered Mississippi State for how many years now?
We're going on 12, I think.
All right.
Dak Prescott's emergence in 13. That was my first year.
Last year's team 2-10. I go to SEC Media Days. I run into some people who tell me, boy, I don't know, man, Mississippi State may not be much better than they were last year. Well, they were wrong. And while I was waiting for some interviews, I actually was sitting on a couch next to Blake Shapen, the quarterback, and we talked for a couple of minutes. I wished him well. And that they're doing some good things. I mean, they're sitting at 4-1, could easily be, 4-2, could easily be 5-1, took Tennessee to overtime. Why are they so much better this year than last year? What's been the big difference?
Well, the roster was just not SEC caliber last year. They didn't have a single person go to the NFL Combine, which I don't remember. I mean, every SEC team gets at least one guy to the Combine. State had 0. And so they didn't have the players. They didn't have the depth. And Jeff Lebby talked about it a lot last year. And I didn't really know how much stock I put into it until I actually saw it. But he talked a lot about how they couldn't even practice how they wanted to practice because they didn't have the depth to even have a scout team out there to feel like they could put something comparable to what they would see on a Saturday. So what they did is they raised a ton of money. It pretty much started after they lost to Toledo when they're embarrassed in that ball game. They went out and they just raised a ton of money in NIL, and they said, we're going to turn this thing around. And so now you look at the team this year, and while they're not exactly where they want to be under Jeff Lebby, they are so much more competitive in this conference because of what they're putting on the field. Talent-wise and depth-wise, they can actually put 2 or 3 defensive lines out there. They have a couple of groups of cornerbacks they can put out there and safeties. The offense has 4 or 5 running backs that they feel really good about. They just lost their best running back for I don't know how long just yet. But, Fluff Bothwell's out, and they still feel good about their running back situation because of the talent they've built there. So it's just it's a roster thing. I think that was the biggest thing, and the continuity that they've built within the coaching staff. Guys have gotten better that were here last year because they kept pretty much the entire coaching staff intact.
Robbie, last year, let me backtrack here. With Jeff Lebby, the head coach of Mississippi State, we think offense. He was at Ole Miss. He was at Oklahoma. That's what he's known for. Right now, Mississippi State's only averaging 394 yards a game. That's not like real eye-opening, and it's only 65th nationally. But the defense has been a lot better, right? Is that the side of the ball where they've made the most improvement? You're just talking about the depth up front and all that stuff. But are we under, when we think Mississippi State, we think Lebby and offense. In doing so, are we sort of underselling the defense a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. You look at the numbers, and the eye test too. You watch this defense, and they're so much more competent than they were a season ago. That was arguably the worst defense I've seen Mississippi State put on a field, and it was comparable. You look back to 2003; that defense was really, really bad. I think Ryan Cooper was running that defense. The 2016 defense under Peter Sermon was just absolutely abysmal. Last year was that, and that's not the Mississippi State way. The thing about Mississippi State is they have an offensive coach now. That hasn't always been the case. This program has not been built around offense in the past. They've had some good offenses, but it's been a defensive-minded program. It's been kind of that blue-collar, hard-nosed mentality. One of those teams that, like, if you talk to AJ McCarron, he would tell you one of the toughest defenses he went up against every single year was Mississippi State. When they left that ball game, and that's Alabama winning all those games they have against Mississippi State, they knew they were on the field with Mississippi State when they left, even if they lost. So last year was a step away from that identity that you've had on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're kind of returning to it. It's a team now that's been kind of built back on the defensive side of the ball. They've been able to get off the field. They're forcing turnovers. They've been really good against the pass. I've been shocked in that regard. I thought they would be better against the run, and I thought that they would be more competent up front. But the passing defense has been what's really surprised me because they lost their best cornerback in Bryce Pollock, who went over to Texas Tech, and they didn't go out and really set the world on fire in the transfer portal at that position. But Kelly Jones has been really good. Diego Broomfield's been really good. Javen Williams, who transferred in from Kennesaw State. Jet Jefferson, who was a JUCO guy last year. They're getting a lot of that cornerback crew so far, and I thought they would be a lot better, but we're talking almost 100 points better in total defense right now. When you look at where they were last year, ranked in the 130s or whatever it was, and now you're top, 40 defensively, it's been pretty amazing. I expect those numbers to drop a little bit, but I think the point is that this defense is so much better this year than they were a season ago.
Zach, I want to ask one more, if you don't mind, just related to that. How are they doing this on defense? Because they're only averaging 1.3 sacks a game. They're not even in the top 100 nationally in producing sacks. And so is it, are they picking their poison? Are they trying to stop the run? What's been the philosophy? And again, a lot of great defensive numbers are predicated on getting to the quarterback. And that's actually the only thing they really haven't done.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. I don't really understand the numbers, to be honest with you, but I think what they've really done, they've kind of kept everything in front of them. They've done a really good job at tackling. I've noticed, I was looking at some of Florida's numbers, and one of the things that looks like their defense has done a lot better this year is getting to the ball carrier and finishing those tackles. I think that's what the State's done this year. That's been a big part of their success too. Is they're not letting guys get loose off that first hit and pick up 10, 20 yards. They're getting the guy down at the line of scrimmage. And also I think that they're just making plays in the passing game. When the ball is getting down the field, they got guys covered. It's been really interesting. They aren't really bringing a lot of pressure, but they're covering really well, and they've had pretty good play up front too against the run. So it is kind of strange that the sack numbers are not very high, but the defense has been really good. But still, you look at those numbers; they almost have more sacks than they did last year through 6 games. They had, Ole Miss had 3 guys last year that had more sacks than Mississippi State did as a team.
Wow.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting when you look at those numbers. They don't really match up, but whatever they're doing is getting it done.
Robbie, you mentioned Mississippi State's pass defense. They ranked 25th nationally. They also stand out with takeaways. 16th nationally with 11, and then they've got 8 interceptions on the year. First of all, what do you think about how they've been able to do with that aspect of the defense? And what are your thoughts on the matchup with their pass defense against DJ Lagway and Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown? Lagway's got it going the last 2 games. I mean, he's thrown for almost 300 and then 245 last week. He finally didn't throw any interceptions against the Aggies. Just what are your thoughts on that matchup? I think that's one of the keys to the game. Yeah,
that could be the difference in the ball game. And this defensive backfield's been tested. Kelly Jones, especially. You look at, he had to go up against one of the best receivers in the country at Arizona State, and they had another great one at Tennessee, and then last week you had 2 that you had to go up against. So these guys have been tested, and I thought they held their own last week or 2 weeks ago against A&M, against Concepcion and Mario Craver. Concepcion had one big play. I think Craver had a big play on kind of jet sweep or something like that. But for the most part, they held their own. One of the things they've done really well is they've forced turnovers, and some of it has been kind of luck of the draw. Some of it's been, a tip ball and there's a guy waiting for it. They did that a lot last year too. But a lot of it too has just been great coverage or, a great play made by someone. I think that probably is going to be where the game is won or lost. I think State is going to have to turn DJ Lagway over. They're going to have to be really physical with the two freshman receivers, and they're going to have to go out there and make plays defensively for this team to have a good shot to go win on the road. And that's kind of what it boils down to a lot when you go on the road in the SEC is you got to force the home team into negative plays early and turnovers and things like that and kind of take the crowd out of it. I think you start to do that with Florida, who's, the fans are already really restless coming into the game on Saturday. I think if you're Mississippi State, you've got to get that crowd kind of turned against Billy Napier and turned against the team. And do that, you're going to have to create those negative plays and turnovers.
Now, I also want to ask you about Shapen too. Obviously, last year he got injured in that game against Florida, and I thought he was playing pretty well, and he's done much better this season. How much you feel like he's looking forward to getting another shot at the Gators, given what happened to him?
Yeah, I think right now he is a guy, he's mentioned this even before the season started. He's a guy that's just grateful to have another shot at this. He's talked about not taking this for granted. He mentioned on Monday, he's just so thankful he's gotten through 6 games at this point. And he's had these injuries in the past. It's not the same thing. Like something else will pop up. He's had a head injury. He's had, I think, a knee injury, shoulder. He's just had a lot of these things pop up, and he hasn't been able to put together a lot of healthy seasons. And so you look at this, and you're 6 games in. You're coming into Game 7. You have an opportunity to go on the road and win an SEC ball game against a team where you got hurt last year in this game. It's kind of a full circle moment for him,
Yeah.
and I think he's really excited about that.
And then obviously this is a huge game for Florida. I'm sure you've seen all the noise that's been happening in Gainesville. What do you think is Mississippi State's mentality coming into this game? Like, are they looking not only to get their first SEC win, but there's some revenge for last season, but they probably know what a win by them would do for Billy Napier.
Yeah, this team is so measured and centered and even keel. I don't know if they talked about that or not. Like they don't really carry themselves with like a chip on their shoulders. They don't really use bulletin board material, at least publicly,
Sure.
or any of that, or the storylines. Like they just kind of like are robotic in how they handle this stuff. I think they take the personality of Jeff Lebby. He comes out and it's like every week is the same thing. I don't
Nameless,
know.
faceless opponent type thing.
That's how he is, and that's
Yeah.
how they are too. But one thing I'll say about them is they are extremely confident, and they have a belief system there where they legitimately think they can win every game. And it's kind of hard to imagine when you come off a 2-10 season. They have not won an SEC ball game since 2023. We've now gone 2 calendar years where they haven't won an SEC game.
Wow.
But this program, this team, Jeff Lebby has done a really good job of pushing that belief system into them. They truly believe that they're going to beat everybody, and I don't think that they thought at any point against Tennessee they were going to lose that ball game until the final play in overtime when the pass was incomplete from Blake Shapen. That's why they were so devastated because they thought the entire game they were going to win that. So that's their same thought process coming into this one. They don't really care if it's home or away. They believe coming into this game they're going to go win.
And they got to think Florida's vulnerable too.
Yeah, and I do wonder about that. I think it could go 2 ways. I've seen it so many times with coaches that are on the chopping block. I've seen teams rally around that, and
Yeah,
I think Florida did that last year.
Yeah.
And I've seen teams completely fold. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm very interested to see how Florida handles
Me
that, and that's
too.
why I mentioned I think State's best shot in this to win this is turning the crowd. Because the first sign of distress on Saturday, you guys know it. There's going to be boo birds coming out. The crowd's going to be restless. I think that's what State's going to have to do in this ball game, and they're going to have to do it early because you start to give that team some momentum. They start to really rally around their coach. I know those guys love Billy Napier. They're going to want to win it for him. So
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see how that plays out in that regard.
Robbie, before we let you go, two things, and we'll get to the second one in a second. But your prediction, we're going to get your prediction. What do you got here? What are you feeling? What kind of score? Whatever you're comfortable giving.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! And I'm on a Florida show. If I say
You
something,
just roll with the punches here.
I truly believe that I think that the noise around this is going to distract Florida in a big way. I just think there's too much going on here with the Billy Napier stuff. I think it's kind of crazy this stuff is leaking like this in the middle of the week. And you can't hide that stuff anymore. And Mississippi State's coming off a bye week. They've gotten healthy.
Yeah.
I don't feel great about predicting Mississippi State to win a road game or win an SEC game at this point, but I just think that that's going to play in their favor. I think they're playing well enough that they could win this game, and you add in the fact that you got the Billy Napier noise. I'm going to take State. I don't feel great about it, but I just think the Billy Napier stuff is going to play a factor in this game negatively for Florida. We'll see if it does, and I think we'll know early. I think in the first quarter, I think we'll know early. If Florida comes out and they're playing inspired, I'm rolling with the Gators. But I just something tells me that this is just going to play out negatively for Florida just because of how it's played out in public over the last few days.
All right, Zach, let's get this homer out of here. All right, no, I'm kidding. Hey, last thing, Rob.
I have no
I
problem.
got
picking
one more
Mississippi
thing too
State.
for you.
Oh, go ahead, Zach. Mine. I got to finish with mine. You take over here,
All
Zach.
right, I got to ask you why we got you here. I know Florida fans are going to love this. Can you just give us your thoughts on Dan Mullen, his tenure at Mississippi State, and then his tenure at Florida, and how it ended from your perspective in Starkville, and then what he's now done at UNLV's undefeated at this point?
Dan Mullen is one of the best I've ever been around at like just building a program. Like he knew how to build a program from top to bottom. And that includes through the fan base, marketing. I mean, he was doing stuff at Mississippi State that's never been done. And he walked into the building on day one and people were saying, we can't do this. And that made him mad. Because he said, like, this is the SEC. You're in the SEC. Why can't you do this? Well, it's never been done before. So he totally transformed Mississippi State from a bottom dweller in the SEC to a team that expected to go win big ball games in this league. And Mississippi State became the first ever number one team in the college football playoff rankings. And they were the number one team for 5 or 6 weeks. And Dak Prescott was on the Heisman Trophy ballot. And Dan Mullen was putting players in the NFL every single season. And you still see those players right now. Some of the highest paid players in the NFL came from Mississippi State. Dak Prescott, Jeffrey Simmons, Chris Jones. These guys were all built right here at Mississippi State. And he was incredible at evaluating talent, developing talent. I'm very interested to see what he does in this era. But in the last era of football, he was great for a place like Mississippi State. And I just didn't think the personality and all that program building and development and all that stuff, I didn't think that was exactly what Florida was looking for. But Scott Strickland had that relationship with him, and he knew that he was a winner, and he did a really good job the first couple of years. I know it went south, but he's a heck of a football coach. I think he would have gotten things turned around at Florida from what he was doing that season before. I know the negative ripple effects came, but I think he would have gotten it turned around. And I think he's going to be coaching major college football in the Power Four in a couple of years. I don't know where it's going to be, but he will be back in the SEC or back in a major conference within the next 2 years. You're not going to get rid of him. He's a winner, and he's a to me, he's one of the best coaches I've been around at building a program, maintaining a program, and having that consistency is Dan Mullen.
You heard it here first. Robbie Falk predicts Dan Mullen will land at Florida in the next couple of months. Hey, Robbie.
There's a lot of people that absolutely hated Dan Mullen when he left and went to Florida that are on their knees right now begging he will come back to Mississippi State.
Wow.
Robbie, before I let you go, I've been to Starkville a bunch. I used to cover the football camps there every summer with Paul Jones and the big dog camps, and I always enjoyed Starkville. Boy, but Starkville is the one town in the SEC that everybody seems to pile on. They just love making fun of it. Kenny Dillingham, the Arizona State coach, was making fun of it. You live in that area. You're from that area. This is your one chance. It's your shining moment. Pump up Starkville. Tell me why Starkville is not as bad as seemingly everybody in the SEC thinks it is. Take it away.
You picked the right person to do this.
That's what he went for.
I am a Starkville homer to the bone. I've grown up in or around Starkville. I've lived here for 33 of my 36 years. And Starkville is incredibly misunderstood. It is undersold by people who have either never been here or haven't been here in the last 20 years. It is a growing community. It is a small town in the South that is built 100% around the university. And there's not many places like that in the SEC. There's a lot of great college towns in the SEC. There aren't many where everyone is in step with Mississippi State. Everybody's locked in Mississippi State. And I love the additions that are coming to Starkville. They're building a brand new entertainment district that is kind of stacked on to what they have in the Cotton District. Going to have a beautiful boutique hotel, a lot of shopping and bars and things like that. It's really growing. It's actually been voted a couple of times the best small town in the USA, I think by USA Today. And incredible food scene, good bar scene. The Cotton District is really underrated. It's just steps from the stadium. It's a very convenient small town if you're an SEC football fan. And the next time Florida comes to Starkville, you're probably going to see a transformation in the town. It's really growing. It's going to be a couple years before they finish out this little entertainment district. But what I tell people all the time is if you have something bad to say about Starkville, I encourage you to come down. I'll set you up with 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And if you finish that day, and we'll go out Saturday night, whatever. If you finish that day and you are not happy and you're not full and you didn't like what you had, then I'll just have to shrug. But I seriously doubt that's going to be the case.
What are the breakfast, lunch, and dinner spots that you tell them to go to?
So for breakfast, I would say Starkville Cafe is downtown. It's a staple in Starkville. It's always slam packed. It's kind of like a diner style. For lunch they'll have the meat and 3 and all that stuff, and just a real homey feel good spot. For brunch / lunch, I would take you to Restaurant Tyler. It's downtown. Incredible blue plate lunch. It's kind of got a New Orleans flair to it.
Ooh.
Good Southern food. For dinner, pick your choice. We'll go to the Cotton District. I'll take you to Two Brothers Smoked Meats. We'll get some wings. We'll get some pork rind nachos. We'll get a barbecue sandwich. We can go over to the Older Brother with my podcast co-host Brian Haydad says they have the fancy sandwiches, the muffalettas and all that stuff. They have a great pork chop at night. Restaurant Tyler in the guest room. It's a little speakeasy spot that's kind of in an alleyway behind Restaurant Tyler. They got a great dinner as well, a great steak. So I'll get you set up, man. I promise. Next time you come down here, we'll go out. I'll get you some good food, and you'll be happy.
That was more than I bargained.
Make another trip, so
yeah, that was more than I bargained for. We could edit all that stuff out, Zach. Later.
That was a little too much.
Robbie Falk of Maroon and White Daily. We appreciate your insight in the Mississippi State program and into Dan Mullen. Robbie, you take care, man. You have a good weekend. All right,
and into Starkville.
Appreciate you, fellas.
Yeah, that's true. Take care, buddy. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Thanks, man.
Robbie's a good guy, Zach. I've known him for a long time, and we appreciate him stopping by. The Mississippi State guys have always been great. Paul Jones and Robbie do a great job on that Maroon and White Daily site, part of the On3 Network. All right, Zach, we got to do one quick ad read, and then we're going to go to our predictions.
So. That's right. Let's head over and give a shout out to Modelo.
Yes.
College football season is in full swing, and it is Modelo season. If you're listening to this right now, it means it's time for reward. Reward your full-time fandom with an ice-cold Modelo. Modelo is the official beer sponsor of the College Football Playoff. Gator Nation, you deserve a Modelo.
All right, Zach, it is prediction time, and just in time because my computer's on 8%. Look, man, this is for a 2-14. This is I don't know if it's a big game. I just know it's an intriguing game, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what Florida team's going to show up. We don't know what limitations DJ Lagway might have. We don't know the defense is going to play like the first half last week or the second half last week or like it did against Texas. We don't know if Mississippi State's ready to win that first SEC game in a couple of years. We know the Swamp's going to be sold out, but we don't know how enthusiastic the crowd's going to be. And we don't know how quickly the crowd may turn on Billy Napier should things look ugly early. So much intrigue, all really wrapped around Billy Napier's future. Zach, let's save the best for last. Your prediction? How about I give mine first this time?
Go for it.
You cool with that? All right.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at these matchups, and yes, Mississippi State is running the ball better this season, but Fluff Bothwell, I love that. That's like the best name ever for a running back. He's not going to play, and he is their leading rusher with close to 500 yards. They've got some good players behind him, like Robbie Falk told us, but I think that is significant. Mississippi State doesn't have the most dynamic offense to begin with. Again, under 400 yards a game. They have had balance, though. 1,260 passing roughly and about 1,100 rushing. So they have had balance, but the loss of Bothwell, I think, is significant. And so Florida's going to try to do what they did against Texas. They're going to try to make them one-dimensional, and I think if they do, that bodes well for that side of the ball. On the other side of the ball, I think the fact that Mississippi State, even though the defense is much improved, the way to beat Florida is to rattle the quarterback, and I don't know that they're going to be able to do that. And if DJ Lagway has time to throw like he did against Texas, he's damn good. All right. So I think Florida ultimately will win this game 31-23. I don't know where they're right here. That's the biggest question to me. I like all the matchups, Zach, but where are they right here in between the ears? I don't know that. And I don't know where the staff is between the ears too. But I like Florida to come out and win this game 31-23. We'll know if I'm wrong, dead wrong, probably about midway through the second quarter. So that's how I see things, Zach. How about you?
Yeah, one interesting thing about this matchup is, the scoring defenses. Both teams only given up 19.8 points per game. So they've kind of been on the same level in terms of their scoring defense. Have not been with their scoring offenses. Mississippi State scoring a lot more than Florida has. But although I do go back to the stat about their passing offense, it does seem like DJ has finally started to get close to where he was, or at least start to get away from where he was in the beginning of the season. With the last two games, he's still not anywhere where he needs to be, and he's having his issues, but he's playing to the point that they can win games. Obviously, they haven't been able to get it done on the road against these great teams. They beat Texas. They did lose at home to USF, though. So I think Florida certainly has the capacity to lose this game. I think Mississippi State coming off of a bye week makes this interesting, and certainly the week that Florida's gone through publicly makes this interesting. I'm expecting and predicting a Florida win. I don't have a score prediction. I do think it's going to be close, but I really don't have a feel for the game, Keith. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what to expect from this team. I don't know what to expect from Mississippi State. All I know is I feel like it's going to be a dogfight. Maybe does Florida have the ability to come out there and put it on Mississippi State? Yes. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that I think it could be a game that ends up going either way in the fourth quarter.
Again, I'm trying to factor in this part. Like I said, Zach, how much are you trying to factor in that part?
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what this team's psyche is going to be. And I think Robbie made a great point. We're going to find out in that first quarter. We learned pretty early that Florida was going to be in it against Texas A&M, at least based on the way that they started offensively. They finally settled in in the second quarter. The one thing that we haven't really mentioned, Keith, and we are recording this on a Thursday, and we are recording this before the Thursday injury availability report comes out. Florida does have, as of the initial report, 2 starting defensive backs listed as questionable in this game: Cormani McClain and Jordan Castell. Jordan Castell plays every single snap for Florida and has the last 3 years, basically. Certainly every game this season. So if one or both of those guys are out, things could get dicey for Florida. You'd probably be having Michael Carraway start at free safety, and you're probably having Javari Flowers, true freshman, reclassified cornerback, making his first career start against Mississippi State. So I don't think Jacoby Jackson's going to play in this game, and they already got 6 players out as of Wednesday. So Florida is dealing with some injuries. So is Mississippi State, though.
That's a great point. And by the way, even if those 2 DBs play, the fact that they were listed as questionable at any point during the week makes you think, well, even if they play, are they really going to be 100% physically, 100% mentally?
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Yeah, I just want, how wounded – I know how wounded the fan base is right now and how angry the fan base is, but I don't know how wounded the team is, and I don't know how angry the team is. They look pretty legit. They might be. They might be, or they just might be dejected. Will they, they say, how focused are you during the week leads to how focused you are on Saturday. How focused have they been in practice? How energized have they been in practice? It's sometimes hard to get reports out of that. We don't know. And sometimes coaches tell you guys look great anyway. and then you find out later, maybe they didn't look great in practice. So I just wonder, again, like Robbie said, like you said, what's the mental state of this team right now? Do teams really play for their coaches? Do they play for themselves? Do they, we're going to find a lot about this group, because at some point you've got to have some pride, right? They theoretically, Florida should be a couple touchdowns better than Mississippi State at home. Yeah. Look at the rosters. Look at the guys that are NFL projected type players. Just on the offense alone, a bunch of them. And then on the defense, a bunch of them. And so, if you're 1 through 22 is supposed to be significantly better than your opponent, and it's at home, you probably should win by double digits. And yet the line is, 7.5, 8 points. And so that tells you that Vegas doesn't have much confidence in Florida right now either. So again, just a mystifying team right now. The losses, yes, to good teams, mostly. I mean, they've all been ranked. USF is now climbing, but you think that you would win one of them or 2 of them more. Like they beat Texas, sure. But that's the outlier. Zach, that's really not who they are this year. It's the other games is who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, because it's obviously where this thing has, evolved to, I think that this is different than anything the players have faced before. Certainly he had his back against the wall last season, but not really, because he got that vote of confidence before the Texas game. So they did go on the 4-game winning streak, and they turned it around, but they weren't at that point, Keith, if we're being honest, like they were playing for him, but they weren't necessarily doing it to save his job, because they already knew his job was safe.
Yeah.
This is a completely different scenario. They've seen everything that came out on Wednesday, and certainly even earlier in the week. There have been national people that have been calling for it, saying that Napier's time is running out. So it's like you said, the psyche of the team is certainly one of the biggest storylines in this game, and it's undoubtedly going to have an effect on this matchup one way or another. Like maybe they handle this they use this as fuel and they come out and blow them out. I don't think it's going to happen, but
we keep talking about the fan base wants him gone. I keep bringing that up and want Billy Napier gone, and the national media like this isn't going to work. It's not working. Well, we don't know. We only know what the players say on the record, right? But common sense tells us there are players probably that are thinking maybe we'd be better with the change too. I mean, it's
Well, and I mean, you I'm sure you get some of that with guys that aren't playing. That's natural.
Yeah. Well, then parents of players, we know how they are, Zach. So I don't know. We'll see. Let's hope Florida puts its best foot forward. I don't think anybody's mailing it in. I don't think anybody's checked out. But the question, Zach, is if you're not 100% mental, if it's not 100%, at 97%, the margin for error is pretty small. That's all another team needs to seize on an opportunity, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and look, as hungry as Florida is, Keith, or could be, Mississippi State is even hungrier, given that they haven't won an SEC game in so long. They got to come into this matchup licking their chops, thinking that they can get Florida in the swamp.
I agree with you. All right. For Zach Alberverdi, I am Keith Niebuhr. This was another edition of the Gators Online Show. We want to thank Robbie Falk of Maroon and White Daily. Where's the like and subscribe? Oh, you already got it for me, Zach. If you like what we're doing, hit the like button below, the subscribe button below. We're closing in on 10,000 YouTube subscribers.
Let's go.
This thing's really growing, and it's because of all of you, and we appreciate the support. For more great Gators coverage, go to gatorsonline.com. Right now, we got the special. You can get in the door, $1, get you in the door. I mean, I think this is a pretty good time to join because there could be some things changing soon, and should a change be made, we're going to be all over that. We can assure you of that. So again, to all of you, enjoy your weekend. If you're heading up to Gainesville, be safe on the highways. It's homecoming. Try to relax, try to have fun. We're getting older, all of us. You never know how many more of these things you're going to have. So try to soak it in. And, maybe there won't be much booing this weekend. We'll see, Zach. But anyway, thanks again to everybody. Zach, thank you, man. You have a good weekend, and I'll see you up in Gainesville. Take care, everybody.